Welcome to the DIY Goalie Podcast, where hosts and goalie coaches Nathan Park and Connor Monday share their insights on how to become a better goalie. Welcome back, goalies, to another episode of the DIY Goalie. And it's been a few weeks since we have had an interview on the podcast, so we figured we'd bring someone else on board to give some fresh perspectives, so you don't quite have to listen to me and Connor all the time. So we've got Justin Goldman joining us. He owns the Goalie Guild and does a bunch of cool stuff that we're going to be diving into to help the goalie community out today. Thank you for hopping on with us today, Justin. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Excited to be here. Excited to chat goaltending with you guys, and I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you guys.
Yeah, awesome. We very much appreciate you hopping on with us, and shout out to Billy Teefy for the connection, getting us hooked up for this episode. So, we're pretty excited to have you on. So we've got myself, Nathan Park, and Connor Monday, as always, as the co-hosts, and Justin's joining us today. So just to start off, why don't you give us a little bit of an intro to yourself and kind of a background, just kind of the 10,000 foot view of your goalie career and just kind of what you've done.
Yeah, no, thanks. Very non-traditional hockey background. I was actually born and raised on a horse ranch, in a rural area of North Dallas. So I was about as far removed from ice hockey as you could possibly be when I was born and raised. And this was in the, I was born in 1982. So I didn't even know hockey was really a sport that I could play until I was basically a teenager. So in 1993, when the Minnesota North Stars relocated to Dallas, that was the same year my family moved off our farm into a suburb of Dallas. So it was just kind of like worlds collided for me. Pro hockey in Dallas was totally new. Nobody knew how to play the game. Very few of my friends knew how to ice skate. But a bunch of us just fell in love with the sport right away. Like the Stars were this gritty, physical team. And that just like gelled so perfectly with the culture in Dallas, a bunch of football fans everywhere. So the team was successful right out of the bat. I was one of the first, members of the Junior Stars program. And it took me a couple of years to learn how to ice skate for sure. But I was just this athletic late bloomer that's just had this huge passion for, playing the position and wanting to learn about every single goalie's unique style and what made them different. And comparing those styles together was just this passion of mine. So I definitely had to work extremely hard to like be a competent skater and to get good enough to, play some college hockey. But my career was very backwards, right? Like I didn't become an emergency backup goalie for the Avalanche until I was 35 years old. So literally my teenage years and all of my 20s and even halfway through my 30s, it was just learning every day from the best coaches I could find, from the best goalies I could find. I'm an extreme learner, and I've always been that way, and I always will be. And so I think that passion for learning just helped me finally get to the point where I was just good enough to be an e-bug for the Avalanche for 5 years, which was, an absolute honor. And now that I'm a little bit older, it's, just mostly focusing on my foundation and giving back to the game that's given me so much.
That's interesting. Again, Justin, thanks so much for coming on here. I wanted to dive in quickly just a little bit about your playing career, just kind of just your upbringing with it, how you might have touched on a little bit already, how you got into goaltending, what inspired you specifically to be a goaltender. Were there any of the goalies that you looked up to, like the Martin Broders, the Eddie Belfours? I know that he was with Dallas for a little bit there. So just kind of, and Turco as well there. That's big name down there. So just kind of what inspired you to be a goaltender, and did you watch a lot of the games that you saw on TV and kind of try to emulate their style, or did you have any kind of structured coaching as you were going through your playing career?
Yeah, no, it was definitely a lot of watching hockey. I mean, I was so far removed from hockey culture growing up where I did, and I was very lucky to have access to TV. And I just remember watching ESPN2, Fire on Ice, catching as many hockey games as I could. And this was back when you would still order the hockey news like a subscription, like over the internet, and you'd get it in the mail every week. So like the hockey news was a really big vehicle for kind of like pushing my passion forward. But I never had any structured coaching with goaltending until I was almost in college. I got a little bit when I was in high school, and I was very, very fortunate for that because it was the first time I'd really gotten any goalie specific training. But you're looking at a guy that was completely self-taught when it came to, just the fundamentals and the basics. But what really helped me, kind of develop, like a core competency and enough to just keep pushing every single day was that passion for just watching goalies on TV. And again, obviously the Dallas Stars being there was absolutely huge. Like beforehand, we had season tickets to the Dallas Mavericks, and they were just this absolutely brutal team in the mid 90s. So it was really easy for, my dad and I to be like, all right, we're done with the Mavericks. Let's watch this new hockey team. And my dad saw that I had a passion, and I gravitated directly to goaltending. I never once ever had any type of passion or interest in being a forward. It was just directly focused 100% of my passion on being a goalie. And it seems a little silly, but everyone's like, how does this guy from Texas that like never knew hockey was a thing become so passionate about goaltending? And what the biggest thing was just I saw this connection between like a medieval knight and all his armor and a goaltender. And to me, at that age, being 11, 12 years old, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I'll never forget being at one of the very first Dallas Stars practices, and the first two guys on the ice obviously are the goalies, and it was Darcy Wakaluk and Andy Moog. And Darcy Wakaluk was wearing like all black head to toe with a little bit of green accent on his pads. And I lost my mind. I was like, that's what I want to do with the rest of my life. And so it's kind of what I've been doing. But yeah, that was where the initial spark was. Like, I actually just like thought of goalies as medieval knights in awesome gear. And it looked like a lot of fun to do that on the ice. So that just kind of captured my attention.
I love that a lot. I like that.
Yeah, that's funny. So just out of curiosity then, because we kind of ask, any of the guests that we have on that kind of played in this era, but what did you find kind of was different between the game now and when you played kind of back in the 90s? And what do you think is actually still like the same or similar?
Yeah, that's a great question. Back in the 90s, again, for me, everyone around me was new to the game. So the level of skill was really, really low. I didn't face any real legitimate talent like guys from Boston or Minnesota or from Canada until, again, I was in college. So now you're talking, early 2000s. So my experience with like mid 90s hockey was mostly just watching the game on TV and playing street hockey. That's really where I got my start, and like the passion for, being a goaltender for the rest of my life really kind of set in was just street hockey. And then ice, like I said, learning how to ice skate took longer. But I think today, like, I still play beer league, obviously, and spent some time, as an e-bug for the Avalanche, and just, you hear it all the time, but it's so true. Just the speed of the game. Like the game is just so much faster. And what players are able to do with their hands to mask shot releases and the deception that shooters have right now, I think is way, way higher than anything we saw in the early 2000s. So again, a lot of that is coaching. Some of that is culture. I think, players evolve and their creativity starts to go up as time goes on, as the equipment continues to evolve. So I think it's a little bit of all those pieces that make the game faster and seem like it's just more electric. And it's a really fun challenge to kind of still skate with some of the younger guys that I play with in beer league.
Yeah, I get it. I sub in with beer league every once in a while, and yeah, like even I'm only 26 years old, but I'm not on the ice very much anymore, and it's like, damn, I can't even keep up with these guys. Justin, you and I share a little bit of similarity here. as we'll talk about your career with the Colorado Eagles and NHL.com when it comes to broadcasting and journalism. I did a little bit of play-by-play for one of the local junior A teams here, and as well as the U18 Triple A team that I fill in for every once in a while, on top of doing the podcast here. So let's talk about what inspired you to get into doing broadcasting and journalism. I'm going to guess that probably hockey on TV played a small part in it. On top of how did you get into your career with writing and broadcasting with your start with the Colorado Eagles of the American Hockey League up to working for NHL.com?
Yeah. I mean, again, growing up where I did in a very rural area of Texas, I spent a lot of time outside. So I was this huge nature kid, and writing is something that came very naturally to me. So I was writing a lot of journal stuff. I remember writing about goalies when I was really young, again, 11, 12 years old, when I picked up this passion for hockey, and even before then. So to me, it was pretty obvious. By the time I was done with high school, I was really focused on, continuing my studies in broadcasting and technical journalism, because I knew I wanted to put, hockey, I wanted to put goaltending and hockey and writing together. Those were my two passions. Those were two things I knew I was good at growing up. And so, I was just trying to be creative and try to find ways to make this work. My dad had a family business, and I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to kind of carve my own path and try to make goaltending a career some way, shape, or form. And that definitely brought a lot of challenges in college. But again, it was just sticking with it and knowing that this is what I wanted to do. And eventually I would get to where I wanted to go. And so, just like in college, you get so many great opportunities to kind of, create your own career and create your own pathways. And I was just very, very fortunate going to Colorado State University in Northern Colorado, that I happened to be going to school in a town where all of a sudden my sophomore year, the newspaper announces minor league hockey team coming to Northern Colorado. And it was just like this epiphany, like, oh my God, this is perfect timing again. It was like lightning striking twice, right? I got introduced to hockey in middle of nowhere, Texas at age 11 or 12. And then here I am, sophomore in college, just trying to find my way. And the opportunity to cover a minor league hockey team while I'm in college dropped right on my plate. So I took advantage of that opportunity. I went into my college newspaper and said, I'm a goalie. There's a new minor league hockey team. I'm going to be covering them. Like, there weren't any questions there. It was just, this is what I'm going to do. You can post my stuff or you don't have to, whatever. I wanted the opportunity so badly, and I was the first guy to jump in and take advantage of that. And the Colorado Eagles, again, credit to them, and I'm so thankful for them. They gave me that opportunity. They gave me a press credential as a junior reporter for the Eagles. And while I'm supposed to be writing about the entire game up in the press box, covering these games, where do you think I was gravitated towards? Directly on the crease.
Of course.
My post-game articles on, all the Eagles home games literally just turned into like 2,000 word scouting reports on the goalies. And so that's when I kind of realized, oh my gosh, I might have an opportunity here to write about goalies. And again, you got to go way back. This was mid 2000s. So this is before Twitter was a thing. And again, social media was not really emerging on the scene as like, an integral part of, daily hockey fans' life. So again, right place at the right time, the opportunity to cover the Eagles, plus, this passion for, really analyzing goalies on a very deep level. I continued to do that for probably 5 or 6 years after I graduated from college. And by that time, I'd been doing it for so long. I had built a little bit of a following on social media, because again, nobody was covering goalies at the time, right? So just kind of carved my own niche as like this very goalie specific, very detailed writer of the position. And sure enough, one thing led to another. I had opportunities to do some broadcasting and radio for the Colorado Avalanche after my time with the Eagles. And then in 2011, that's when I kind of got my big break. I was almost 30 years old. So again, grinded for a lot of years. And then I think I was 29 when NHL.com knocked on the door and said, hey, we'd love to have someone that just focuses on analyzing goalies. And that was a huge opportunity. And again, something that I know I worked really hard for. And I did that for 4 years. And so that's kind of the steps that I took. It was, again, back then, the Colorado Eagles were not an AHL team. They actually started out as a Central Hockey League team. So we're talking like fourth level of minor league hockey. That's where, I paid my dues. That's where I put in the time. That's where I grinded to learn as much as I possibly could, not only about, the goaltending position, but just how to handle myself professionally and, how to act around scouts and pro goalies. And every single day was a learning experience that I truly cherished. And, almost a decade later is when I finally got my break.
Sounds kind of similar to like Kevin Woodley over at InGoal.
I was just about to say that because I think you've done some work with the boys over at InGoal along with the Goalie Guild retreat and all that there. So I have no doubt that probably you and Woodley have probably crossed paths from NHL.com.
Dude, he's unbelievable. He and I can remember going back, like InGoal and the Goalie Guild started at roughly the same time. Like, again, this was way back when we didn't have social media influencers. We didn't have any of that. It was literally just like the Goalie Guild was a blog, like a WordPress blog where I would update like stuff on pads and stuff. Like I was doing pads tracker and tracking all the gear and just posting scouting reports from all these abs games. It was so bare bones compared to what you see today. And then, InGoal Mag started right around the same time. It was like those middle 2000s when, the position was starting to change and we started to see more goalie specific coaching and social media like Facebook and Twitter, mid 2000s. That's really where a lot of us, started to provide more coverage and get more exposure for goaltending, at a professional level. And credit to those guys because, they've done such amazing stuff. And like, they're so like integral to the goaltending community because they're one of the really few resources that are consistently, giving you insights to what the pros are doing. And so I was fortunate to kind of have that stretch when I was with NHL.com. But a guy like Woodley, like we call him a media shark, right? Because he's just got, you go through his phone and he's got contacts for every single goalie at every level everywhere. So like goes back a long way. And I love those guys for what they do. And they're doing some excerpts of the new book that just came out that Mike and I wrote that just came out in December. So it's great to have those guys, be able to support some of the stuff that we've been doing over all these years.
So in your time then doing, the play-by-play and working with NHL.com and all the journalism stuff, do you have any like interesting stories or kind of some cool people that you got to meet or anything kind of along those lines with maybe some of the pro goalies or goalie coaches or anything like that that's kind of an interesting thing we could share for the listener?
Yeah, I mean, I was really, really lucky. Again, I think it was a lot of right place at the right time. NHL goalie coaches were really excited to know that there was someone out there that worked for NHL.com that was like really geeking out on goalies. And so when NHL goalie coaches would, when teams would come through Denver, I took the initiative. I was just like, hey, I'm gonna message Mitch Korn, one of the most legendary goalie coaches in the NHL. I've been doing it since the mid '80s with the with the Sabres, and worked with Hasek. Mitch Korn is a legend. And even though it came with nerves and, I was still kind of cutting my teeth in this whole, trade of being a goalie scout or an analyst for NHL.com, every NHL goalie coach I reached out to was so appreciative and so like welcoming and made me feel like what I was doing was valued. And that was such a great confidence boost. And I'll never forget the first time I met Mitch Korn. It was at a morning skate. He was with the Predators at the time. And this is when the Nashville Predators had Pekka Rinne, who was 8'11", and Anders Lindback, who was 10 feet tall. And I just will never forget going into the locker room after the pregame skate. Pekka Rinne broke one of his Warrior sticks in half, and he's signing it for me, and he stands up, and these guys are in their gear, and I'm just like, you guys are so big, you're so fast, and you're so athletic. this is mind, it was just mind blowing to be that close to those guys, like right next to them in their gear. And that was a really cool moment. I think that's something that Mitch saw as well. He realized that I was a guy that didn't play at a high level growing up, never had these kind of experiences, and just wanted to learn every single day. And so for him to kind of take me under his wing a little bit, and he's been a mentor of mine since that very day, for him to kind of take me under my wing and just give me that boost of confidence to be like, hey, it doesn't matter if you didn't play at a high level. It doesn't matter if you're from Texas, or whatever the case may be. Like, if you've got an eye and a passion for the position, go with it. And so it was guys like Mitch Korn and Mike Valley, who obviously I've gone on to write books with when he was with the Dallas Stars. Some of the goalies as well. I'll never forget the time the Avalanche played the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Matthew Guerin was the goalie for Tampa Bay. And he's like this sick, butterfly goalie, catches with the right hand, and was unreal in shootouts. And I'll never forget just like talking about how good he was in shootouts. And sure enough, the game goes to a shootout. And I'm pretty sure Tampa Bay ends up winning that game. And going into the locker room afterwards, his gear's down on the ice. And I was just like, man, what do you do that makes you so good in breakaways and in these shootouts? And just, you're expecting this like really complex answer. And, Matthew just looks at me and he goes, just focus on the puck. That's it, And so it was like all these little experiences I was having after these Avalanche games with all these different types of goalies from different parts of the world. Their mindsets were so simple, but they were so focused. You're learning from those things. You see what it's like, right front and center, what it means to be a pro goalie and what it takes to be good on a consistent basis when, everyone's looking at you and all eyes are on you. So there wasn't really one big one that stood out, but Mitch Korn for sure, meeting him for the first time, legendary goalie coach, getting to, connect with him for the first time. And then, interviews with guys like Matthew Guerin, or one of my favorite goalies of all time. I know you asked me this earlier, like who was the goalie that I most closely followed or idolized? It was Chris Osgood, actually. For whatever reason, like just, Western Canadian boy, played juniors, worked his way in with the Red Wings. His style was so natural and so effortless, and he was so flashy with his glove hand. And everyone loved to hate him because he wore that old Cooper mask and would give up really bad goals at bad times, but still went on to win 400 games. So, getting to interview Chris Osgood after a game was a huge moment for me and something I cherish. And again, just taking all those experiences year after year after year helped mold me into where I'm at now.
Edmonton Oilers legend, Matthew Guerin.
Yes. Yeah. He was so silky, like the skating style back then with the pads and everything else. Like he was so silky smooth and so good in penalty shots and shootouts. I'll just never forget that. So again, you're thinking he's going to have like this, like wildly like deep answer. And then it's just like, focus on the puck, man. That's all I'm doing. Like, it's not that easy, man.
I always found it just terribly like sad that he was always on the Oilers teams of the decade darkness as Oilers fans.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, like I wasn't a fan of him at the time because like the guy that I wanted to see play like almost every game was JD Delorier.
Loved him too.
And, and then after, like I never actually took the time to like appreciate Guerin until after he had left, and we were stuck with Javi Bulin and Dubnik and what was the other guy, Gerber for a while there, but you never actually appreciated him until after.
Well, and sometimes and something that I've like noticed over the past probably, I don't know, I'd say 4 or 5 years is how much more respect I have for the veterans that may not play very much, but play until their late 30s, early 40s. Like that is remarkable to me now that I'm at that age, 42 going on 43. Like if you're playing NHL hockey into your late 30s and you've had a 10, 12-year career, doesn't matter if you haven't played a lot of games, you're still showing up every single day. You're on that grind. That's amazing. Like guys like Curtis McElhinney or Craig Anderson, like those guys, holy cow, to be able to still stop pucks at that level after your body has been through so much is truly, truly amazing. So like I've had a whole newfound respect for those kind of, Fleury, obviously, Luongo, like the guys we know that played really, really long time. That's truly amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. There, I want to jump back now because we talked about where we kind of briefly teased it with the Goalie Guild and Gold Magazine starting about the same time. Why don't you tell us about the Goalie Guild, what it's about, and kind of how it came to be and why you started it?
Yeah, I mean, originally when it first started, it was like I said earlier, there was really no resources out there besides In Goal Magazine that specifically catered to goaltending analysis in the goalie community. When I originally started it, it was just a vehicle for me to post my goalie scouting notes. I had no intention of doing anything, nonprofit related or anything like that. It was mostly, like I said, just a resource for goalie geeks to nerd out about goalie style and technique. And really, again, this was back in 2008, 2009. So around the same time, social media is starting to flourish and become more popular for sports fans. What really allowed us to take off was this concept. I came up with this in this project called Pads Tracker, which again was literally just a little spreadsheet on a blog that listed every NHL goalie and every single piece of gear that they wore. And for whatever reason, that just like people loved it. And a few years after doing that, we created these graphic templates to go alongside them. So from like, again, 2008 until probably mid 2010s, every single goalie that played in an NHL game, we had documented template of the gear that they wore in a list. And so again, consistently doing it and following the passion for multiple years, I started to realize that, my experience growing up in a non-traditional hockey market, completely devoid of any resources for coaching or just education on like how a goalie should train or where do I find a goalie coach in my area. Like there was nothing out there, nothing besides, again, In Goal Magazine. And knowing that they were based in Canada, it was like, okay, well, what is there for US goalies? Like, I'm a US goalie. I was born in the middle of nowhere, Texas. I know there's tons of kids like me that just don't really know where to go. And so for me, it was this opportunity to kind of transition from, just solely focusing on scouting and like the real nitty gritty technical stuff to, hey, let's like broaden the horizons a little bit. Let's create a resource that, all of these underprivileged or undereducated goalies can go to get support, and the parents as well. So I think it was in 2015, I had spent 2 years living in Minnesota working with USA Hockey. And so that's how I kind of got connected with the national team and was doing some scouting for them. And after that second year in Minnesota, I just woke up one morning and was like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to Colorado. That's where my family is. That's where I truly feel like that's where home is for me. And I'm going to transition the Goalie Guild into a 501c3 nonprofit. And so it took about a year to get that all done. But in early January of 2015, I got the letter in the mail from the IRS that said like, oh, your foundation is like legal now. It's a 501c3. And that was a huge moment. That was like, okay, this is the step I wanted to take to go from, being just like this hardcore analyst to someone that's building and giving back to the community. And so, yeah, it's been just over actually 10 years now of the Goalie Guild being a 501c3 nonprofit. But its original roots were just like Goalie Guild was this blog on WordPress, like drop all my scouting notes, all that stuff that I'd written over the years from all those NHL and minor league games. And then that Pads Tracker feature was like so popular because we all love gear so much, and that's what the people wanted to see. So I made sure I gave the people what they wanted.
I took a quick look at that before the other day when we were prepping for the episode, and I noticed that I think it was what 2017 was the last year on it or something. It had Matt Murray in the Penguins uniform with his
Yeah,
like V7s or something like that, or
you
the
got it.
yeah,
Yeah, we were
and
we were cranking out those templates back when like the larcenies were really popular and the 1/100s and like the first wave of like the Odin Bauer pads, like the ones that
yeah,
were made out of the rubber Crocs that Lundqvist wore. Yeah, I mean, those templates were awesome. And shout out to my good buddy who spent countless hours building those out for me, Matthew, who ended up getting a job with Bauer because of it, because he was cranking out the templates.
nice.
And so it's just so cool, like the evolution of the pads, right? Like we started to see
Yeah.
being able to do digiprint and like more custom designs. And Mash was the one that was creating all of the templates before templates were really even a thing. And so like he was in the right place at the right time. And because of the work he was doing with Pads Tracker, he ended up getting a gig with Bauer for a couple of years, I think. So
Yeah. Talk us through then, like, kind of what sort of opportunities are available to goalies through the Goalie Guild, and kind of like, what you offer as support and resources and kind of stuff like that, aside from just like the content and all of that stuff that you were
yeah.
writing.
Yeah, no, thanks for that question. So the Goalie Guild 501c3 is formally recognized as an education nonprofit. And so all of the projects that I'm focused on and 99% of the work I do is based around education. And so I find creative ways to create projects that are going to just continue to educate not only parents, but the goaltenders, obviously, and then opportunities for coaches to increase their competency when it comes to training goalies on the position. So it's everything from grassroots development, like how do I size my gear properly, to the really complex and more intricate aspects of player development and goaltender development from a holistic standpoint. So I run the gamut. It's everything from the content you see online when I have some time to do social media, to the books that I've written with Mike Valley, to a lot of the events that I help build and support, which are these goalie coaching symposiums or these think tanks or these communities where goalie coaches are learning from each other, and they're having the opportunities to share information. And one of the most powerful vehicles, whether you're talking to an 8-year-old goalie or a parent or a coach who's worked with goalies for 30 years, sharing is the most important component of the community, for goaltenders and for coaching the position. If you're not sharing the ideas that you have and the content that you're reading and writing and watching, and you're not willing to have open conversations with other goalie coaches and pick their brains and let them pick your brain, nothing goes anywhere. And so that's something that I learned, when I first started to travel overseas about 10 years ago. The culture in Europe is so much more open and free flowing and creative because the sharing is truly valued. Whereas here in North America, we've had this trend and we've had this issue where the sharing is just not as open, and it's not as free flowing. And I think that limits some of our opportunities to learn more. So I'm trying to break some of those barriers down by bringing international coaches over to North America, and by me going over to international countries and learning from Europeans and from anyone I can over there. So that's been a big focus of my work with the Goalie Guild over the last 10 years.
It's awesome. Like, that's kind of a lot of the reasons why we started doing the DIY goalie stuff. And with everything going on, like, I wish I had more time to do more with it, and that's something that we're going to try and do more of, like, as we go here. But the one thing that I did want to ask about, when it came to what you have with the Goalie Guild, was the Lift the Mask program,
Yeah.
and kind of what it is and what goalies can get from it, and kind of how they can utilize it to their advantage.
Yeah, I mean, again, this was a program I think born out of necessity, as well as, again, just my experience and the experience of so many goalies that don't have all the resources directly in front of them. And I think it was one day, and I started Lift the Mask in 2018. So I think it was early 2018. It was actually Bell Let's Talk Day. And that was so huge on social media, right? And so that was the day where I kind of like, it triggered in my mind that like, okay, mental health resources are so crucial for athletes in any sport, any people, anywhere. Is there anything that exists for mental health in goalies? Couldn't find anything. So that was, again, a kind of call to action whenever I feel like there's something missing in the goalie community, where the opportunities or the accessibility is not where it should be, I want to step in and help. And again, because of my own personal experiences, I never had anyone to turn to when I was struggling with the position, and I struggled a lot because I didn't have, support. I was self-taught, and my parents were so supportive, but they weren't hockey people either. They just wanted to see me enjoy what I was doing, and I enjoyed learning, but I also knew that it came with a lot of challenges, mentally and emotionally and physically. And so, as I got older and I started to learn more about what pro goalies are going through, I realized that like they're struggling with the same exact things that like I was struggling with when I was 14, 15, 16 years old. So again, it was just kind of like my own journey, and interacting with so many types of goalies from so many different parts of the world, and the coaches as well. It was like, man, there's got to be a resource. There's got to be some kind of mental health program for goalies. It doesn't have to be robust. It doesn't have to, solve all of the problems that every goalie in the world is having. It just needs to be something that's consistent, and that's truly dedicated to supporting mental health for goalies. So it was very easy to incorporate a mental health program into the foundation. And really, the whole essence of Lift the Mask is to eliminate any of those financial barriers that are associated with goalies getting help. And so we always have like $100 stipend set aside so that if any goalie reaches out and is just like wanting to talk to a professional or wants to connect to a mental skills coach or is looking for a sports psychologist or anything in that realm, it's like there's money set aside ready to go so that that's never the thing that gets in between a goalie potentially going on their own mental health journey. So that's very simple, right? Like it doesn't take a lot of time or effort. And so we build around that core pillar of, eliminating financial barriers by just doing little things. Like we have the helmet stickers that go on the back of helmets with the logo. Kids love to hand those out at tournaments. It's a really simple token and gesture of, hey, there's someone that's here to listen to you. There's a place you can go if you're struggling. And then we just lean on the goalies that are, showing us how important it is to get help. Look at Connor Ingram. Been in the program once. He just went back in literally a couple days ago. Like his story is a story that we try to reinforce and we try to share, because seeing an NHL goalie go into, the NHL program to get help, whether it's for alcohol or it's for loss of a loved one or it's something else, it's like we need to normalize those things. Like that's how you get goalies to realize that it's okay to speak up when something isn't right. And there's always trends that kind of come in and out and flow in and out of the position when it comes to mental health. And, I'm keeping track of those trends by the people that I talk to every day. And ultimately that's what I'm doing. Like, I don't claim to be a sports psychologist. Like I'm not selling any kind of like special mental health program. It's nothing like that. It's literally just having conversations with goalies and talking about how they feel. Like that's ultimately, I think that's how you truly connect with younger goalies as someone who's getting a little bit older. It's not trying to preach at them or, give them some kind of system or try to give them all the solutions. It's just resonating with them and having a conversation with them and letting them know that like whatever they're feeling or whatever they're not sharing, like look at all these amazing NHL goalies that go through the same exact thing in their own special way. So that's honestly what mostly the program is like, there's financial support available. But we're trying to spread a culture where we're empowering these goalies to go out and be ambassadors for mental health by just talking about it, talking about how they feel, sharing their own stories on social media, doing the photo contests that we do where it's just goalies lifting their mask. I think those things go so much further than trying to sell a program or force kids to have discussions that they're not comfortable having. But if you approach them just like they're normal human beings, just goalies that want to get better, you can really make a big difference, and you can really help normalize those conversations. And I think that's ultimately what the program's trying to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what we'll do is we'll link that up in the show notes. So if you guys want to check it out and want to do anything related to that, if you need the resource there, we'll put it up in there so you guys can reach out and get involved with that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's we do a lot of work behind the scenes, right? Like I'm out there looking for professionals, so mental skills coaches, therapists, sports psychologists that have some kind of goaltending background. And when I can find those individuals and get them to want to support other goalies, that's super huge because, again, it's all about breaking down barriers. And we know as goalies that it kind of takes one to know one, right? Like we spend so much time like trying to teach other people what it means to be a goalie because they've never done it before. So like you spend half of your time when you're talking to someone, when you're struggling, just trying to get on the same wavelength of like, this is my experience. I've never put the mask on before. How can I truly understand what you're going through? Well, that's part of the problem is like not a lot of people know what it really means to be a goalie, so they can't really resonate with the struggles. But when I can find a professional therapist who has those licenses and has that professional experience, and they also have some kind of goaltending experience, that's like it's like hitting the jackpot, because not only are the professionals like 100% I want to help more goalies because they know what it means to be a goalie, but on the flip side, it's like the kids are so much more willing to talk to someone that has the experience as well of being in the crease. So that's like a big part of the program too, is just like trying to find these individuals and get them to, want to support. And every time I've found someone, they've all been 100% in. So we have a list on our website of providers that have those licenses, cover a wide range of things, and also have the goaltending background. And those are who we're always promoting, like goalies or parents or anyone who reaches out. Like, find someone from that list you resonate with, give them a call, they'll help you out. And so that's a big part of the program as well.
Yeah. Definitely, for sure there. Think something that, just like we talk, we talk a lot about mental health, and, like the fact that you are coming in and doing this with the Goalie Guild is just fantastic. And so we really appreciate that. And we'll link all that there in the show notes. Let's talk about this here as well, because this is also like another big thing when it comes to the Goalie Guild, and something that is talked about every year. And although I think at the start of the conversation we had said that you guys were taking the year off this year, let's talk about the Goalie Guild retreat. How did that all come about, and what do you think has helped make that so successful into becoming the program that it is today?
Well, the program's successful because of the people that are involved. And I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about the coaches and the goalies that come out and attend. And I spent pretty much like 5 or 6 years every summer going to Finland and Sweden to study the position and learn about the culture. And those trips were amazing. Like, that's some of the best experiences I've had in my journey came during those summers when I would go over there and just spend a few weeks, immersing myself in the goaltending culture there. But then I realized I couldn't do that forever. And so I'm going to flip the switch a little bit. And instead of me going over there, hey, I'm going to bring everyone here. Like, Colorado's a beautiful state. Breckenridge is one of the most iconic like mountain towns you can find in the state. And it has one of the highest elevated rinks in North America at almost 10,000 feet. So I kind of put two and two together. I was like, okay, bringing a bunch of really good coaches and a bunch of really good goalies out to Breckenridge in the summertime and train at 10,000 feet. Goalies are going to love it because they're getting gassed and they'll get great training. Coaches love being in the mountains where, they're away from prying eyes and it's private and it's, very much retreat style. And let's just see what emerges, let's see what we can learn from each other when we put a very diverse group of goalies and coaches together from all different parts of the world. And the only reason it was successful right away, again, was because of the people that came together and understood what the assignment was. And the assignment was to go out and do what you think is new or unique with the position. Like, show us the newest thing that you learned or that you've taught your goalies and share it with the other group and let's discuss and see what emerges. And I think the coaches were caught off guard that first year because they never get the opportunity to do that. Yeah. When you're working with goalies during the season, it's always like, get ready for the next game, get ready for the next game, get ready for the tournament, get your boys ready. That's it. You don't really get a lot of time to be creative and try new things. Right. And so again, just like Lift the Mask, just like the Goalie Guild Foundation, I saw that there was a piece missing. I saw that goalie coaches at the professional level did not have an opportunity to create their own think tank internationally, where literally the only assignment was to be creative and try new stuff. And so I wanted to fill that gap because during my time studying overseas and during, just my time writing the books, I started to realize that we were losing the creativity in the game, not only with the goalies, but with the coaching. It was becoming a little bit too structured. And so injecting more of that creativity and license for coaches to work with new props. One year we had drones on the ice. We were working with technology that no one had ever thought about using for goalies before. This was when VR was just coming out. I just took all these tools and all these people that were, really creative in the way that they were using different tools and just put them all together in Breckenridge and let it flourish. And it flourished because of the people. And so every year I kind of try to make it a little bit different in terms of what the task is for the group and, what is the focus of the overarching theme of the year. And those first 2 years before COVID were amazing because we had probably 15, 20 countries represented all the way from Jamaica and Mexico to Australia and the big countries like Sweden and Finland. So when you're having a conversation with a goalie coach from Australia, it was so cool because their culture and their background and the way that they teach and the words that they use is completely different. Right. And so mixing it all together just created this really cool, laid back, chill environment where as soon as a coach saw one guy try one thing, he's like, I've never been able to try that during the season because if I did, my coach would absolutely carve me up. But hey, I can do it here. No one's going to get in my way. So again, that was the opportunity that I wanted to create for coaches from, again, around the world. And most importantly, goalie coaches that had a passion for wanting to coach at a higher level, but had probably never gotten an opportunity like this before. And that's where your boy Billy comes in to the picture, right? Absolutely most passionate guy I've met in many years. And I just knew he would cherish the opportunity to be around, the coaches in Breckenridge. And he was an unreal addition because there's nothing holding him back. He had the confidence to just go out and try stuff. And some of the stuff he tried, again, you'd never see it during the regular season on a team. But in this environment, it was liberating to see what some of these coaches are willing to do. And I'm proud of that environment being created with this retreat in Breckenridge.
All right, yeah, no, that's great, and definitely, I think speak for both Nathan and I here that we'd love to get out to some of that. Just something that kind of quickly popped into my head. Just how much obviously there's a bunch of dialogue between the goalies and goalie coaches there at the Goalie Guild retreat. How much of when you're doing your presentations and stuff, is there any differences or similarities between how coaching and dealing with goalies is in North America versus overseas?
Well, Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of differences, and that's why we make sure to bring as many coaches over from Europe so that the North American coaches can get exposed to different methods of educating and inspiring goalies. Um, to be quite honest with you, in Breckenridge, at least, when we're in the room having these discussions, it's actually not that much about like the real nitty gritty technical stuff. Like we're not spending hours arguing about is your glove hand at 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock. Um, everyone that comes
Yeah.
understands that like what goalies really need right now is holistic elements of the position injected into the already very technical training. So one of the rules that I kind of live by and what I've tried to teach a lot of these coaches over the years is the importance of autonomy for goalies and for goalie like coaches need to help goalies gain a higher sense of their own self-awareness. And I think the greatest gift you can give a goalie, doesn't matter what age or level we're talking about, the greatest gift you can give a goalie as a coach or a mentor is the gift of self-awareness. And that's a quote I heard from a goalie coach in Sweden that coaches at the professional level. And it's like one of my pillars for the work that I do. Um, the best way you can truly motivate a goalie is by understanding what motivates them, where their passion's coming from, what is it that they need in order to continually push to be the best that they can possibly be. And discovering that isn't always by coaching them. It's by kind of taking a step back and listening, and observing the wider environment of what your students and your goalies are operating within. But when we're constantly on top of our goalies, shouting directions all the time and giving them all the answers and constantly trying to, be in their ear, we're doing goalies a disservice because we're turning off that ability for them to problem solve on their own and discover solutions for the different problems that, emerge in a hockey game. So that's where a lot of like the research that I do behind the scenes, um, and then using that stuff that I'm learning, emerging science around ecological dynamics, which is a phrase you may have heard. I've been speaking about it for 3 years and learning about it for 3 years. We're taking these principles of ecological dynamics, which is scientifically based and researched at extremely high level, and we're injecting that into goalie coaching development. And we're helping the goalie coaches upskill themselves by giving them these really essential tools that, again, don't have really anything to do with the nitty gritty technical aspects of the position, but it's how they can teach those things better and in a more effective way that's truly going to engage and inspire and motivate the goaltenders. So it's more about how we're communicating and how we're creating lesson plans and creating drills even that truly allow the goalies to flourish and problem solve, as opposed to just being like, you go from A to B to C and the shot's going to come. Okay, great. You've just given goalie exactly everything that they need to do in order to make a save look really pretty in practice. But you know what? You don't get those answers and you don't get those clean looks in a game. In a game, everything's messy, and goalies have to be able to problem solve authentically and without distraction or overcoaching getting in the way. So that's like a little bit more of like what we're actually discussing in those rooms. And it's amazing because, the NHL, like for example, we've had Dave Alexander from the St. Louis Blues come out the last 2 years. His presentations are amazing because he's giving these goalie coaches a really authentic look at what is happening when he's communicating with Jordan Binnington and the other goalies in the Blues Association. Like he is telling us, this is what we're discussing. And it's amazing because, again, it's not like what you would think it is. It's not these overly technical discussions where they're breaking down frame by frame every little detail. Some of it's just basic life stuff. It's, how do you trust the process? What are you doing away from the rink to make sure you have balance in life? These are things that coaches, I think, kind of lose track of because they're so obsessed with just what's happening in the crease that they forget the bigger picture of life, and they forget the bigger picture of like, you're trying to guide your goalie to find his or her own solutions, because they're the only ones that truly know what's happening on the inside and the outside. So yeah, it's a little bit of a different approach. It's not overly technical, but we're still leaning on a lot of emerging science in terms of how goalies are interacting with their environment and how can we better support growth and skill development around that.
Yeah, I think we kind of saw that at the Four Nations face-off there with Binnington coming up with some clutch saves that weren't exactly the prettiest,
Right? But
prettiest
like,
saves.
he was, he is such an amazing puck handler.
Yeah,
And I think what was so cool about his performance in that tournament was how confident he was handling the puck and how good he was, outside of the crease.
yeah,
And I think that
Right.
actually goes a long way in like reinforcing some of the stuff that we're talking about here. It's not all about what you do in the crease. It's how you contribute outside of the crease. What can you do to support your teammates and play more cohesive as a 5-man unit as opposed to just everything being in the blue paint. So he was a treat to watch. Props to you guys. I owed a lot of buddies drinks. Like all my Canadians fans, I owe drinks because I made that bet and I lost fair and square. But yeah, Binnington was an absolute stud in that tournament. He was really fun to watch.
yeah, for sure. No, I love a lot of that. That quote's awesome. That's a lot of kind of our philosophy with True North goaltending too, about, making the goalies their own goalie coach, and it's not good business practice, but it's want to make ourselves obsolete, but that's
you're doing the right thing by saying that.
Yeah.
There's plenty of goalies to go around, but the answers can't always come from your mouth.
Yeah.
Like they have to find solutions in their own way, and it's going to look different, and it's going to look like learning is messy, especially as goaltenders. And I think a lot of coaches out there, like the ego gets in the way a little bit and they want everything to look clean and perfect in a practice. And it's just like, that's not how learning works. That's not how goalie training works. It's messy. It's very non-linear, right? You can have all the best progressions in the world in your program for a season, but it's going to go up and down and back and loop back on itself and get twisted up in knots. And that's the reality of, how athletes, not just goalies, develop. So I love that you guys are doing that. And that makes me happy. That makes me smile. That might get you an invitation to the GGR next summer.
Ooh, I like it. Yeah, no. And that's like all the stuff you said. It's like, can't help but nod in the head and smile because it's, it's awesome to see. And I love it personally. I know Connor does too, but just to, since we are getting a little long here, so I do want to touch on, before we kind of wrap things up and let you go, on the e-bug side of things, because I got over 2 seasons the chance. I think it was only for 12 games, but I got a chance to e-bug for the Oilers. And so I'd like to kind of compare notes a little bit. So for my
I'll just sit here and be quiet.
Yeah.
I'll just sit here and twiddle my thumbs, guys. Thanks.
Maybe
one of these days, Connor, one of these days you'll be as cool as us.
Wishful thinking there, Justin.
Yeah. For my instance, like, it was because I was playing college locally and they had, the University of Alberta goalies and then myself at NAIT being the e-bug. So I'm curious kind of what they did in Colorado as to how they, hired for the job, I guess, and kind of what your experience was in terms of, did you get to practice with anyone? Did you get to kind of sit on the bench at all? Like your personal experience with it? Yeah,
super interesting experience. Again, I think up in Canada, Toronto, Winnipeg, like you said, Edmonton, those teams have so many more goalies to pull from when it comes to an e-bug situation. Like, fair enough. They can lean on the colleges, they can lean on, universities, whatever. Here in Denver, there's not too many people to pick from. The talent pool for e-bug is much, much lower. So kind of like a running theme in my life, right, is this sort of idea of right place at the right time. This one was very unique in the sense that, again, I had covered the Colorado Avalanche professionally through broadcasting, radio and NHL.com for many years. So, I had a press credential with the Professional Hockey Writers Association. I was in the press box for, I think, every home game from 2006 until 2012. So, over those years, there would be opportunities to skate at Pepsi Center. It was called Pepsi Center at the time, to skate there in preseason games to keep the ice ready, in between the preseason and the regular season game. So that's actually kind of where I planted the seeds of like this opportunity to be an e-bug in Denver, was just by attending employee skates and being a goalie for one of those. And obviously the Avalanche, knew that I was in the press box, knew that I was a goalie scout with NHL.com or whatever. So I built up, confidence within the organization that I knew how to handle myself around pro goalies, and, I wouldn't be a fanboy and stuff like that. So that laid the foundation all those years, just, broadcasting and covering the team and, skating in these, preseason skates at Pepsi Center. But when the NHL announced the rule in 2017, that was when I got a call from the Avalanche, and the call was like 2 weeks before the preseason. So it's like early September, right? And one of the Avs employees calls me, and I swear to God, I thought this was a prank. It was like, hey, new rule from the NHL. Like, we need a list of emergency backup goalies for our team. We were wondering if you'd be interested in not only doing this, but, helping us find some guys locally that can do this. And I was just like, I almost hung up the phone. I was like, whatever. Like, I thought it was a prank call from a friend. Turned out to be real. I was just like, I don't even know what to say. Like, yes, absolutely. Be a dream come true. Tell me what I need to do. So sure enough, I got this opportunity to like work with the organization to come up with a list of 10 guys that met certain requirements that the Avalanche had for, being an emergency backup. So we didn't have traditional tryouts. Like, we didn't have a group of goalies go out on the ice and duke it out for this opportunity. The Avalanche kind of handpicked individuals that they were familiar with. And then we kind of like cross-referenced some of these goalies. And that first season, there were 5 of us. There were 4 of us the first year. So it was me and 3 of my really good friends that I knew I could trust to, handle the gig and compete if needed. So it was awesome because it was like me and 3 of my buddies got to do this role for the 5 years, and the other 3 are still doing it. I retired in 2022. 5 seasons as an e-bug for the Avalanche. I never once got to put on the jersey or sit on the bench or anything like that. But absolutely, there were a lot of times in the summer where players would come back and skate at different times, and so you'd have those kind of skates. So I did a ton of those, but yeah, 5 years, never once got the chance to even like throw on the jersey. Meanwhile, the other 4 guys have gotten to do it multiple times, and I'm very jealous of them for that. But it's, like when I started to get close to 40, and especially the year the Avs won the Stanley Cup, which was my last season, there were some nights where I was like, okay, I don't think I can, I started to feel my age. Let's just put it that way. And it comes with its own stresses and anxieties. It's like, this, Nathan, it's like, going into an e-bug game, 99.9% of the time, nothing's happening. But if you're not ready, that 0.001% where something happens and you're not prepared or you're not feeling good, that could be, that could wreck things, right? Like, it would be a horrible feeling to go out there and just not perform well or fall on your face and just look dumb. So the last season was really the most challenging for me mentally and emotionally, because I was like, I knew I was getting closer to the age where I realized like I probably would be doing more damage than good to the position if I kept doing it. So that was the challenge for me. It wasn't really anything like a lack of confidence. It was mostly just like, I don't want to be that one guy that ends up ruining it for all the other e-bugs because I'm aged out. Yeah. So I think I made a good decision to like, I went out on my own accord, so to speak. I made the decision after the Avs won the cup that I was 40 years old, got to do it for 5 years. Amazing honor, amazing opportunity. One of the craziest things that I've ever got to experience. And I was really happy with that 5-year stretch, my 5-year e-bug career.
Yeah.
That's like a good note to end on. Hey, just like cap out the career with basically being on a team that won the Stanley Cup. Like I think that's a great way to like go out.
Yeah,
As
no,
close as the average Joe gets, I
Yeah,
guess. Hey?
exactly.
well, what's so cool, and the reason why it was easy to make this, there was a number of reasons why it was easy to make the decision. So it wasn't like anything like a normal NHL goalie. But when the Avs won the Stanley Cup, I had to go to Halifax during the parade, so I missed the parade, which kind of sucked. But I was going to see a good buddy in Halifax for another goalie camp. When I came back, there was a box on my door, and I opened up this box, and it's from the Colorado Avalanche. And it is a custom Avalanche jersey with my name and number on the back, and a little letter that says, "Hey, Justin, from your Avs family, thanks for your help over the past 5 seasons. The Colorado Avalanche." And that was like, oh my God, like that was, the Avalanche did not have to do that. They didn't have to send the E-Bugs jerseys. We didn't do anything in the playoffs, but for them to kind of make that token of appreciation and send us a jersey with like the patches and everything was like unbelievably cool. And when I got that, I was like, okay, like that's so sick that they were willing to take time to, show appreciation for the E-Bugs. And I've got it framed and it's sitting right here. So yeah, that's when I was like, okay, there's nothing else that I really feel like I need to accomplish with this role. I'm so lucky that I even somehow stumbled upon the opportunity. But the most important thing to me, and I want to say this because, I still get questions sometimes like, oh, don't you think you can still do it? Like, the guy in Toronto was like 44, whatever, you're only 42, but it's like, I care so much about the e-bug role and everyone who gets to do it that I would never be able to live myself if I was the guy that had to go in and again just struggled or did not look competent. And so it was out of respect for the position and the role and the opportunity that some of us get to do this that I was like, yeah, I'm done. Like I'm not gonna put myself in a situation where I just may not be ready. So that's, I'm really proud of that because it came with its struggles, but the Avs made it easy by dropping a really sick jersey on my lap for doing it for 5 years. So that was a really cool moment.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
No, for sure. Well, I suppose we can kind of wrap that there for today. Justin, again, on behalf of Nathan and all of our listeners here at the DIY Goalie, thanks for popping on here. Just very quickly here, just where can people find you, and just we'll kind of touch briefly a little bit about your new book with Mike Valley and where people can get it.
Yeah, so my main, for social media, it's just Instagram right now. We obviously have a Facebook page as well, but you can look up at the Goalie Guild. My contact information's on the website, liftthemask.com, obviously. I appreciate you guys, giving me a couple minutes to talk about that. That's a big part of what I do. And then, the book series with Mike Valley is called The Power Within. And we just published the 4th one in the series. And all of those are available on Amazon. So you can just go in and type in, the Goalie Guild, the Power Within Goalie book. You'll see the series pop up. They're $20 each. So they're not expensive, but they're full of great interviews and a lot of wisdom. A lot of the stuff you hear me talk about is because of these books and the goalies we've interviewed. Those have been like a real awesome, experience working with Mike on those. And we're really proud of the 4th one because we've got goalies like Jeremy Swayman and Tim Thomas and some unbelievable coaches as well. Just, again, sharing wisdom and passing that along to the next generation. So, check those out if you get a chance.
Just hitting up all the Bruins, eh?
We went hard. The cover is gold, actually. Goldish yellow. We went with the Boston Bruins theme. And we had a Vegas Golden. We had Sean Burke, the goalie coach for the Vegas Golden Knights. So we're like, all right, I guess the cover's gold.
Yeah, we'll get all of that in the show notes for you guys.
Yeah. I heard the interview with Tim Thomas was quite interesting. We'll have to bring you back on just to specifically talk about the books, because I feel like that's a pod episode. And
we'll have to hit you up to bring Tim Thomas on too.
Yes,
he is. Nobody in my life.
He's a very reserved guy, isn't he?
He's a very reserved guy. Yeah, I mean, he went through a lot with the concussion stuff at the end of his career, and I think he was pretty messed up for a while. And I think at some point we're going to hear more about his journey. I think he's got a story that probably 99% of people in hockey have no idea what this guy's actually been through. I have never, ever in my life come across a guy who thinks the game like Tim Thomas thinks the game. Like, maybe Dominik Hasek is the other guy. But when you talk about creativity and, just being your authentic self and, not letting coaching getting in the way of, discovering who you really are as a goalie, like Tim Thomas is like iconic. And some of the stuff he shares in the chapter are mind-blowing, and I'll share one piece, and it's where he talks about why he wore the crazy masks that he wore, like those like everyone's like, what are you doing, like you look like garbage. The reason why he wore those masks is because he needed to be able to hear the game. He needed to be able to hear the game. He said in the new helmets, it just didn't sound the same, but in that combo, I could hear guys on the back door. I could hear their edges. I could hear this, that. And you're just like, dude, you think the game on such a higher level, you're like a savant. So Tim Thomas, he didn't always look great, but holy cow, the way he thought the game and the purpose behind and the intention behind why he wore the gear and you're just like, dude, you're amazing. So yeah, we can come back on and talk about him and some other stories in those books, because there's a lot of really good ones.
Sickest Nike Bauer pads in the league. Tell you that right now. Good call. Definitely loved watching Tim Thomas play there. Well, Justin, again, thank you very much for coming on the show today. Much appreciated. And we'll definitely have to have you back just to specifically talk about the Power Within. All those will be linked down in the show notes there on Amazon. If you are I'm going to plug InGoal here. If you are an InGoal subscriber, they do have some excerpts from the most recent release of the Power Within their blogs there. So if you are an InGoal subscriber and you check those out, then definitely go and do that. On our side of things here, that's where we're going to wrap it up for today. If you are watching on the YouTube side of things, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Share with your friends across all your favorite social media platforms. If you are listening on your favorite podcasting platforms, Apple, iHeart, Spotify, etc., again, thank you for being a listener. If you are a new listener, make sure you hit that follow button and share along with your friends as we try to upload a new episode every Tuesday. We got some interesting guests lined up here, Justin Goldman being one of them. Make sure you guys follow us on our social media side of things. Like Nathan and I had mentioned in the last couple of podcasts, we are planning on looking at, we are transferring everything over from the DIY Goalie website over to our in-house goalie program, True North Goaltending. So make sure that you guys follow or keep up to date on that over there. Go check out the DIY Goalie website for all of our blogs, drills, and everything of the sort there. For social media side of things, for the DIY Goalie, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, etc., all at the DIY Goalie. If you are interested in working with myself and Nathan and any of our amazing staff members with our in-house program here in the Edmonton area, True North Goaltending, make sure you guys go to truenorthgoaltending.com. You guys can check out all the fun stuff that we have going on here. We do have camps that are with some spots that need to be filled here for the summertime, so come check out us and hang out with us there. That's all I have to say for today. Make some saves, goalies. This was a DIY Goalie brought to you by True North Goaltending. Take care. We'll see you next time.